I was 9 years old the day my uncle sold me in the rain. 9 years old when I learned that family could measure your worth in silver coins, that a child's life could be traded for a sum small enough to make a desperate man weep with relief. I remember the sound, the metallic clink as the pouch exchanged hands, and I remember thinking, with the strange clarity that comes with absolute devastation, that this was the sound of my world ending. My name is Sharon, and this is the story of how I went from property to power. From the girl they bought for 30 silver to the queen marked by 2 mates, one who saved me and one who should have destroyed me. But let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment everything ended, to my 9th birthday. The world ended for me on a Tuesday. I know that's a strange thing to remember, what day of the week it was, but when you're 9 years old and your entire existence is being ripped apart, your mind latches onto the smallest, most meaningless details. Tuesday. It was raining. The kind of cold, relentless rain that turns dirt to mud and makes everything smell like rust and decay. The kind that seeps through the cracks in the walls and pools on the floor of our rotting shack at the edge of Ashfell territory, where even other Omegas looked down on us. There had been no cake that morning. No song. No acknowledgement at all that 9 years ago I had entered this world loved and wanted. My mother had died bringing me into it, and apparently that made my birthday something shameful, a reminder of loss rather than a celebration of life. I'd stopped expecting anything years ago. After Mama disappeared and Uncle Garen took me in, birthdays became just another day of chores and silence and the gnawing hunger in my belly that never quite went away. But somehow, some childish part of me had hoped, had thought maybe this year would be different. I was in the corner of our tiny shack, mending one of Uncle's torn grain sacks, when I heard the knock at the door. My fingers had been bleeding from the needle pricks. I was never careful enough, never fast enough, never good enough at anything. But as I sat there in the gray light filtering through the broken roof, something strange happened. The pain began to fade. Not completely, but enough that I could flex my hands without wincing. I stared at my fingers, confused. The tiny wounds were still there, but they looked older somehow, like they'd been healing for days instead of minutes. I shook my head. Probably just my imagination. Probably just wishful thinking, like everything else in my pathetic little life. Uncle Garen's head snapped up from where he'd been hunched over his bottle. He always had a bottle now, ever since his gambling debts grew teeth and started biting back. His eyes, small and pale and always bloodshot, gleamed with something I didn't recognize. Something that made my stomach twist into knots. "Stay there," he told me, pointing a gnarled, shaking finger in my direction. "Don't move, don't speak, and for the love of the moon goddess, don't embarrass me." I nodded, drawing my knees up to my chest, making myself smaller. I was good at that, at disappearing, at being so quiet and still that people forgot I was there. Sometimes I wished I could disappear completely. The man who entered our hovel was like nothing I'd ever seen before. He was an alpha. I could tell from the way he moved, the way his presence seemed to fill the entire cramped space of our shack, making the walls feel like they were closing in. The way the very air seemed to bend around him in deference. His clothes were fine. Black wool with silver fastenings that caught the weak firelight like captured stars. His boots were polished to a mirror shine, unblemished by the mud outside. His hands were clean, the nails neatly trimmed. But his eyes. Gods, his eyes were the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Colder than the winter river that had taken my cousin 3 years back. Colder than the earth over Mama's unmarked grave. Colder than the moonless nights when I'd lie awake wondering if anyone would even notice if I vanished like she had. Ice blue, sharp as broken glass, and utterly, terrifyingly empty of anything resembling mercy. And they were looking at me. Not the way people usually looked at me, with pity or dismissal or mild disgust at the dirt perpetually smudged on my cheek. No. He looked at me the way Uncle Garen looked at the chickens before slaughter. Like I was something to be evaluated, assessed for value, judged for usefulness. Like I was livestock. Is this the one? His voice was smooth, cultured, entirely void of warmth. Yes, my lord. Uncle practically groveled, his voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before. Obsequious, eager, stripped of all dignity. 9 years old today, as promised. Omega designation confirmed at birth. Healthy, obedient, no living family to come looking. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. No living family. The words echoed in my head like a death knell. Stand up, girl. I looked at Uncle, confused, frightened. He jerked his chin at me impatiently, a vein throbbing in his temple, and I scrambled to my feet. My mending fell forgotten to the floor, the needle still trailing thread like a severed lifeline. The Alpha, Lord Sanchez, my mind supplied from some half-remembered marketplace gossip about the warlord who'd seized power after the Luna Queen's death, circled me slowly. I felt his gaze traveling over me like cold hands, and I wanted to scrub my skin, to hide, to claw my way through the floor and disappear into the earth. Skinny, he observed, his tone flat, clinical. She'll fill out, my lord, Uncle said quickly, desperately. And she's a hard worker, tireless, never complains, never causes trouble. Scars on her hands. From work, my lord, shows she's not afraid of labor. Lord Sanchez made a non-committal sound. How do I know she won't run? Uncle laughed. Actually, laughed, and the sound made something inside me crack like ice over a frozen lake. Where would she go, my lord? She's got nothing. No one. She knows her place. She's grateful for it. The Alpha stopped in front of me. Up close, I could see the gray threading through his dark hair, the hard set of his jaw, the faint scar running from his temple to his cheekbone, a mark of violence survived. Look at me, child. I forced my eyes up, even though everything in me screamed to look away, to submit, to show the deference that had been beaten into me since I could remember. His lip curled slightly as our eyes met. Adequate, he said, as if I were a piece of furniture he was considering purchasing, as if I were nothing. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a leather pouch. The sound of it hitting the table was obscenely loud in the small space, heavy, final, absolute, like a coffin lid slamming shut. Uncle Garen's eyes widened. I saw his throat work as he swallowed, saw his hands tremble as they reached for the pouch like a starving man reaching for bread. He loosened the strings, looked inside. The way his face transformed, the naked greed, the triumph, the relief that washed over him like absolution, told me everything I needed to know. No, I whispered. The word came out so soft I barely heard it myself. But somehow, in that moment of terrible silence, it seemed to echo. No. Lord Sanchez's eyebrow arched, his expression shifting from boredom to mild interest, like a cat noticing a mouse's final twitch. Uncle Garen, please. My voice cracked, and suddenly I was moving, rushing forward, grabbing onto Uncle's threadbare sleeve with both hands. Please, I'll be better. I'll work harder. I won't eat as much. Please don't. He shook me off like I was a particularly persistent fly. Enough, Sharon. His voice was hard now. All pretense of familial affection dropped like a mask he no longer needed to wear. You should be grateful. Do you know what kind of opportunity this is? A position in Lord Sanchez's household at Ironmore Keep. You'll have a roof over your head. Meals every day. You'll never have to worry about starving again. But I don't want to go. Tears burned hot trails down my cheeks. This is my home. This is my home, he corrected sharply. You've been nothing but a burden since the day your mother vanished and left you on my doorstep. At least now you'll finally be worth something. 30 silver. Do you understand? 30 silver. That's more than I'd make in 2 years. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, my vision blurring. Please. I tried one more time, my voice breaking into pieces. Please don't send me away. I'm sorry I cost you so much. I'm sorry I'm an Omega. I'm sorry Mama disappeared. Please, I'll be good. I promise I'll be so good. I'll be invisible. You won't even know I'm here. We're wasting time. Lord Sanchez's voice cut through my desperate pleas like a blade through silk. Get her things. Whatever she needs. She doesn't have things, my lord. Uncle was already pocketing the pouch, his movements quick, furtive as if afraid I might somehow steal it back. Just the clothes on her back. He paused, then crossed the room to the small wooden chest where I kept my few possessions. Mama's comb with the broken teeth, a smooth river stone I'd found, a bird's feather, and the locket. Always the locket. No! I lunged forward, but Lord Sanchez caught my arm, his grip iron hard, bruising. Uncle pulled out the locket, the silver oval that Mama had worn every day before she disappeared. The one thing that proved she had existed, that she had loved me, that I hadn't imagined the warmth of her arms or the sound of her voice singing lullabies, the only thing I had left of her. It's worthless, Uncle said, turning it over in his hands with casual cruelty. Tarnished silver. Probably not even real. But she's attached to it. Lord Sanchez held out his hand. Uncle dropped the locket into his palm. Please, I sobbed, struggling against the Alpha's grip, my arm screaming in pain. Please, that's all I have. It was my mother's. Please don't take it. Take me, but please, let me keep. Lord Sanchez examined the locket with cold curiosity, turning it over in the firelight. Then he looked at me. And for just a moment, so brief I might have imagined it, something flickered in those ice-blue eyes, something almost like recognition. But it was gone in an instant. She can keep it, he said finally, his voice flat. He dropped the locket into my trembling hands. Let her hold on to her illusions a little longer. I clutched the locket to my chest like it could somehow anchor me, somehow stop this nightmare from continuing. Uncle Garin grabbed my other arm roughly. Come on then. Lord Sanchez is a busy man. Don't make him wait. No, please, Uncle, please. But he was already dragging me toward the door, toward the sleek black carriage waiting in the rain, toward the end of everything I'd ever known. Uncle Garin! I screamed, my voice raw and desperate. Uncle, please, I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Please don't leave me, please. He shoved me toward Lord Sanchez and turned away, turned his back on me, just like everyone else in my life eventually had. Get in the carriage, child, Lord Sanchez said quietly, his hand heavy on my shoulder. Not gentle, but not cruel either. Simply inevitable. I looked back one last time at the shack that had been my prison and my home, at Uncle Garin standing in the doorway counting his silver, at the grave marked only by a pile of stones where Mama might be buried, at the life I was leaving behind. Lord Sanchez lifted me into the carriage like I weighed nothing, like I was nothing. The door slammed shut. The carriage lurched forward, and I pressed my face to the rain-streaked window, clutching Mama's locket in both hands, watching the only home I'd ever known disappear into the mist and rain. Mama, I whispered to the silver oval warm against my palms. Mama, if you're out there somewhere, if you can hear me, I'm so scared, I don't know what to do. The locket remained silent. The moon goddess remained silent. The world remained cold and cruel and utterly indifferent to the tears of a 9-year-old girl who'd just been sold for the price of a lame horse. But as I sat there in the darkness, rain drumming against the carriage roof like a funeral march, I made myself a promise. A vow. I'll find out what happened to you, Mama, I whispered fiercely. I'll find out the truth, and I'll survive this. I'll survive whatever they do to me, I swear it. The locket seemed to warm in my hands, and deep inside me, in a place I didn't yet understand, something ancient and powerful stirred, something marked by the moon, something that would not be broken. The carriage ride lasted 3 days, though it felt like 3 lifetimes. Lord Sanchez didn't speak to me once. He sat across from me in perfect stillness, his ice-blue eyes occasionally flickering in my direction, as if checking to ensure his purchase hadn't somehow escaped or died. I slept in fits and starts, my body jolting awake every time the wheels hit a rut, my hand always clutching Mama's locket like a talisman against the darkness pressing in from all sides. We stopped only twice, once to change horses, once to let me relieve myself behind a tree while a guard watched to make sure I didn't run. As if I had anywhere to run to. As if the wilderness wouldn't swallow a 9-year-old Omega whole within hours. When we finally arrived at Ironmoor Keep, the sun was setting, painting the fortress in shades of blood and shadow. The place rose from the earth like a monument to cruelty, all sharp angles and cold stone, towers clawing at the sky like accusing fingers. The walls were black granite, slick with rain and moss. The windows were narrow slits, dark and watching. The wind howled through the courtyard, carrying with it the scent of smoke and something else, something metallic and wrong that made my wolf whimper deep inside me. Fear. The whole place reeked of it, thick and cloying, hanging in the air like smoke that never cleared. Lord Sanchez descended from the carriage without a word and strode toward the main entrance, his coat billowing behind him. A guard grabbed my arm, not gently, and hauled me out, dragging me across the rain-slicked cobblestones when I stumbled. The entrance hall was cavernous and cold, lit by torches that cast more shadows than light. Our footsteps echoed like heartbeats in a tomb. I tried to make myself smaller, tried to disappear into my own skin, but the guard's grip on my arm kept me tethered to reality, to this nightmare I couldn't wake from. "Vasca!" Lord Sanchez called, his voice flat and bored. A woman materialized from the shadows like she'd been waiting there all along. She was tall and rail-thin, with iron-gray hair pulled back so tightly it stretched her skin taut across sharp cheekbones. Her eyes were the color of dirty ice, pale, cold, and utterly merciless. She looked me up and down with the same expression someone might give a rat found in the grain stores. "Another one, my lord?" Her voice was like iron scraping against stone. "See that she's put to work immediately. The usual instructions apply." "Of course, my lord." Mistress Vasca's thin lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a kinder face but looked more like a wound. "I'll see to it personally." Lord Sanchez left without another word, without even a glance back at the child he'd just purchased. I watched him disappear up the grand staircase, his footsteps fading into silence, and felt something inside me die. Mistress Vasca's bony fingers clamped around my upper arm with surprising strength. She leaned down, her breath smelling of something sour and medicinal, and when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper but somehow more terrifying than any scream. "Listen carefully, girl, because I will only say this once. You will be invisible. You will speak only when spoken to, and even then, as little as possible. You will never," she squeezed my arm hard enough to bruise, "never look an alpha in the eye. You will not complain. You will not cry where anyone can see you. You will not steal. You will not be lazy. You will work until your hands bleed and then you will work some more. Do you understand?" I nodded, too terrified to speak. "I didn't hear you." "Yes, ma'am," I whispered. "Mistress Vasca. You will call me Mistress Vasca. Your name no longer matters. You are Girl or Omega or whatever I choose to call you. Your old life is gone. This is your life now. The sooner you accept that, the easier it will be." She released my arm and straightened. "Follow me." She led me through a maze of corridors, down, always down, into the bowels of the fortress where the stone sweated moisture, and the air grew thick and hard to breathe. We passed kitchens belching heat and smoke, storerooms stacked with barrels, and finally, at the very bottom, a heavy wooden door. Mistress Vasca shoved it open. The servants' quarters were exactly what I'd expected, and somehow worse. A long, low-ceilinged room carved from the bedrock itself, lined with wooden pallets barely thick enough to keep flesh from stone. 6 other Omegas occupied the space, all female, all hollow-eyed and silent as ghosts. They looked up briefly when we entered, their gazes sliding over me with the dull indifference of people who'd learned that caring about anything only brought more pain. "That one's yours," Mistress Vasca said, pointing to an empty pallet in the corner, the thinnest and most threadbare of all. "You'll wake before dawn. Sarah," she jabbed a finger at a girl who looked maybe 14. "We'll show you your duties. Fail to complete them and you'll go without meals. Fail repeatedly and you'll meet the punishment room. I clear?" "Yes, Mistress Vasca." "Good." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and girl? Whatever you were before you came here, whatever dreams you had, whatever hope, forget them. You're property now. The sooner you understand that, the longer you'll survive." The door slammed shut. The sound of the lock turning echoed like a death sentence. I stood there in the flickering lamplight, staring at my pallet, at the prison I'd just been sold into, and felt the weight of it all crash down on me. But I didn't cry. Mistress Vasca had said not to cry where anyone could see, and even in my devastation, I obeyed. The days that followed blurred together into an endless nightmare of labor and exhaustion. I scrubbed the great hall on my knees until my hands bled and the stones swam before my eyes. I emptied chamber pots before dawn, the smell making me retch until there was nothing left in my stomach. I hauled water from the well in buckets so heavy I could barely lift them, my arms screaming in protest, my back bent nearly double. I learned to move like smoke, to anticipate needs before they were spoken, to become so invisible that people looked through me as if I didn't exist. And slowly, horribly, I began to believe I didn't. The other servants never spoke to me. I was the newest, the lowest, the one who got the worst tasks and the smallest portions. At night, I would collapse onto my pallet and stare at the ceiling, too exhausted to even dream. 3 weeks into my new life, something changed. I woke in the middle of the night to find a kitchen cat curled against my side, a scraggly orange thing with one eye missing and a back leg bent at an unnatural angle, the bone clearly shattered. It was breathing in shallow, pained gasps, and I could see the blood matting its fur. "Oh, you poor thing," I whispered, gently stroking its head. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The cat's single eye fixed on me with an intensity that seemed almost human, almost pleading. I held it carefully, whispering the lullaby Mama used to sing, the only comfort I had left to give. My hands rested on its damaged leg, and I felt wetness on my cheeks that I couldn't afford, but couldn't stop. "I wish I could help you," I breathed. "I wish I could fix it." My palms grew warm. I was too tired to question it, too numb to pull away. The cat's breathing gradually steadied. Eventually, we both fell asleep. When I woke at dawn to the sound of Mistress Vasca's bell, the cat was gone. But on my pallet, where the injured leg had rested against my hands, there was a small smear of blood, and nothing else. I stared at it, my heart hammering. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I remembered my bleeding fingers on the day Uncle sold me, remembered how they'd healed faster than they should have. But that was impossible, wasn't it? I buried the thought deep, the way I'd learned to bury everything. My name, my past, my hope. I got up. I went to work. I disappeared. And in the darkness of Ironmore Keep, something ancient and powerful that I didn't yet understand continued to grow inside me, patient and inevitable as the rising moon. 1 year. I'd survived 1 year at Ironmore Keep, and I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Survival meant becoming nothing. I was 10 years old, though I'd stopped counting the days after my birthday passed unmarked and unnoticed. I'd stopped expecting anyone to remember my name. I'd stopped expecting anything at all, except the endless cycle of work and exhaustion, the gnawing hunger that never quite left, the cold that seeped into my bones and stayed there even in summer. The strange healing incidents continued. Small things I couldn't explain and didn't dare speak about. A burn from the kitchen fires that should have blistered but didn't. Bruises that faded overnight. Once, another servant girl sliced her hand open on broken pottery, and when I helped her bind it, the bleeding stopped faster than it should have. She'd looked at me strangely, but said nothing. I learned to keep my hands to myself after that. It was early autumn when everything changed. I was scrubbing the stone pathways in the garden, one of my less horrible tasks, because at least I could see the sky and feel the sun on my back. My hands were raw and red from the lye soap, my knees bruised from kneeling, but the garden was beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. Roses still bloomed along the walls, their petals like drops of blood against the gray stone. I didn't hear him approach. One moment I was alone, lost in the rhythm of scrub and rinse, and the next moment there were boots in my peripheral vision. Expensive boots. Clean boots. My heart seized in my chest. I immediately dropped my gaze to the ground, making myself smaller, invisible, waiting for the inevitable kick or curse or order to move out of the way. But it didn't come. The boots didn't move. "You've been working on that same stone for 5 minutes," a voice said. Young, male. Nothing like Lord Sanchez's cold precision or Darius's cruel mockery. This voice was soft, thoughtful, almost kind, though I'd nearly forgotten what kindness sounded like. I scrubbed harder, faster, panic rising in my throat. Had I done something wrong? Was I too slow? Too visible? "I'm not criticizing," the voice continued. I was watching you. You seem very focused." I risked the smallest glance upward. The boy standing before me was maybe 15, with dark hair that fell across his forehead, and eyes the color of storm clouds, gray and deep and somehow sad in a way that made something in my chest twist. He was dressed well, but not ostentatiously, and he carried himself with a careful stillness, as if he too knew what it was like to make yourself small. This had to be Williams, Lord Sanchez's younger son. I'd seen him from a distance a few times, always in the shadow of his older brother Darius, who was everything Williams wasn't. Loud, cruel, vicious as a rabid dog. I looked back down immediately, my heart hammering. Never look an alpha in the eye. Never, never, never. "I'm sorry, my lord," I whispered, my voice hoarse from disuse. "I'll work faster, I'm sorry." "No, he sighed. "You don't have to apologize, I was just—" He trailed off, then crouched down so we were at eye level. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing for a blow that never came. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The question hit me like a physical thing. My name. When was the last time anyone had asked my name? When was the last time anyone had cared enough to wonder if I even had one? I opened my mouth, but no sound came out at first. I'd been girl or Omega or you there for so long that I'd almost forgotten the answer myself. "Sharon," I finally whispered, and hearing it aloud, hearing it spoken like it mattered, like I was a person who deserved a name, made my eyes burn with tears I couldn't afford to shed. "Sharon," he repeated, and the way he said it, with such simple respect, made something crack open inside me. "I'm Williams. It's nice to meet you, Sharon." I stared at him, utterly bewildered. Nice to meet me? I was a servant. I was property. I was nothing. But he was looking at me like I was real. "I should go," he said after a moment, straightening. "But I'll see you around, Sharon." And then he was gone, leaving me kneeling on the cold stone with my brush still dripping soapy water, and my name echoing in my ears like a prayer I'd forgotten how to say. After that, Williams started appearing in the garden whenever I worked there. At first, it was just brief exchanges. A greeting, a comment about the weather, a question about how I was faring. I answered in monosyllables, terrified that someone would see, that Mistress Vasca would find out, that I'd be punished for speaking to the Lord's son. But Williams was careful. He only came when the garden was empty, when the other servants were occupied elsewhere. And slowly, impossibly, I began to trust that he wouldn't hurt me. He brought me things. A piece of bread wrapped in cloth from the kitchens. An apple, crisp and sweet and more delicious than anything I'd tasted in a year. Once, a small jar of salve for my cracked, bleeding hands. "You don't have to do this," I'd whispered, clutching the jar like it was made of gold. "I know," he'd said simply, "but I want to." 3 months after our first meeting, Williams led me to a place I'd never seen before. A tower in the abandoned east wing of the keep, its spiral stairs dusty and draped in cobwebs. My heart pounded as I followed him up, certain this was a trap, certain I was being led to some punishment I couldn't imagine. But when we reached the top, I forgot how to breathe. Books, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, lining shelves that reached from floor to ceiling. Dust motes danced in the moonlight streaming through the tall windows, and the smell of old paper and leather filled the air like incense. "No one comes here anymore," Williams said, watching my face with something that might have been hope. "It's been forgotten. I thought maybe you'd like it." "It's beautiful," I breathed, and it was. It was the most beautiful thing I'd seen since Mama disappeared. "Can you read?" he asked. I shook my head, shame burning through me. "Would you like to learn?" I looked at him then, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't seen in anyone's eyes for so long I'd forgotten what it looked like. Genuine kindness, no ulterior motive, no cruelty waiting beneath the surface, just goodness. "Yes," I whispered, "please." And so it began. 2 or 3 times a week, whenever we could slip away unnoticed, Williams taught me letters. He was patient and encouraging, never frustrated when I struggled, never mocking when I mispronounced words. He treated me like I mattered, like my mind was worth cultivating, like I was more than just hands to scrub floors and a back to bear burdens. He gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. He gave me back my dignity. Months passed. I turned 11 without telling him, not wanting to burden him with something as trivial as a birthday. But the lessons continued. And with them, something else grew. Something fragile and terrifying and precious. Hope. "You're quick," Williams told me one night as I successfully read through an entire page without help. His smile was genuine, reaching his sad gray eyes. "You learn faster than I did." "You're a good teacher," I said quietly, and then, because I couldn't help myself, "Why are you doing this? Why are you kind to me?" His smile faded. He was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the moon. "Because everyone deserves kindness," he said finally, "and because I know what it's like to feel invisible in your own home, to feel like you don't matter." He looked at me then, and I saw something raw in his expression. "You do matter, Sharon. I need you to know that." My throat closed. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but clutch the book in my hands and try not to cry. For the first time since Mama disappeared, I felt seen. I felt real. And it was the most dangerous, most wonderful thing that had ever happened to me. 3 years. I'd been at Ironmore Keep for 3 years, and in that time I'd grown from a terrified child into something else, something I couldn't quite name. I was 13 now, though still small for my age, still easily overlooked. But the hours spent in the tower library with Williams had changed me in ways that went deeper than my ability to read or write. They'd given me back my voice, my sense of self, my hope. And something else had changed too. Something I couldn't name aloud. couldn't even fully acknowledge to myself. The way my heart raced when I heard Williams's footsteps on the tower stairs. The way his smile could warm me from the inside out, chasing away the cold that had lived in my bones for so long. The way I found myself thinking about him during the endless hours of scrubbing and hauling and serving, his kindness the only light in my darkness. I was in love with him. It was foolish and forbidden, and utterly, completely hopeless. He was Lord Sanchez's son, heir to Ironmore Keep. I was property, purchased for 30 silver coins. We existed in different worlds that should never have touched. But in the tower library, surrounded by dust and moonlight and books that smelled like forgotten dreams, those worlds collided. "You're distracted tonight," Williams observed, looking up from the book he'd been reading. He was 18 now, taller, broader in the shoulders, but his eyes still held that same gentle sadness that had drawn me to him from the beginning. "Is something wrong?" "No," I lied, my fingers tracing the words on the page before me without really seeing them. How could I tell him what I was feeling? How could I put into words the way my chest ached when he smiled? The way I treasured every moment we spent together like precious coins I could spend later in my memories. "Sharon." He set his book aside and leaned forward, his storm-gray eyes searching my face. "You can tell me, whatever it is." I opened my mouth to deflect, to change the subject, to protect us both from the dangerous truth. And that's when the window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the floor in a glittering cascade. I screamed, throwing my arms up to shield my face. Williams moved instantly, pulling me against his chest, his body between me and whatever had crashed through. For a moment there was only silence and the thunder of my heartbeat and the warmth of Williams's arms around me. The first time he'd ever held me. The first time I'd been this close to him. Then I heard it. A weak, desperate cry. A hawk lay among the broken glass, its wing bent at a horrible angle, an arrow shaft protruding from the joint. Blood pooled beneath it, dark and spreading. Its eyes, bright gold, almost human in their intelligence, fixed on me with what looked like pleading. "Gods," Williams breathed, releasing me carefully. Some hunter's arrow must have gone astray. But I wasn't listening. I was already moving, dropping to my knees beside the dying bird, my hands hovering over its broken body. "Sharon, don't! You'll get blood all over." "Shh," I whispered, to Williams or the hawk or both. "Shh, it's okay. I've got you." The hawk's chest was heaving with shallow, panicked breaths. Its wing was shattered, the bone protruding through feathers and flesh. It should have been dead already. It was dying now, its eyes beginning to glaze. I couldn't let it die. I didn't know why, didn't know what compelled me to cradle the broken bird as gently as I'd cradle a child, to whisper the same lullaby Mama had sung to me all those years ago. My hands settled over the wound, and I felt the warmth building in my palms, like it had so many times before with the small injuries, the minor hurts. But this was different. This time I let it happen. This time I didn't push it away or bury it deep. This time I reached for it. This strange power that lived inside me like a second heartbeat I'd been trying to ignore for years. My palms began to glow. I heard Williams's sharp intake of breath, but I couldn't look at him. Couldn't break my concentration. Silver light poured from my hands, soft and luminous as moonlight, wrapping around the hawk like a cocoon. The arrow shaft dissolved to ash. The wing began to move, the bone sliding back into place with small clicks that I felt more than heard. The torn flesh knitting together. The bloodied feathers regrowing clean and whole. The hawk's breathing steadied. Its eyes cleared, focusing on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. And then it spread its wings, both of them, perfect and unbroken, and launched itself into the air. It circled the library once, twice, its cry echoing off the stone walls like a song of gratitude, before soaring out through the broken window into the night. I stared at my hands. They were still glowing faintly, the silver light pulsing in time with my heartbeat before gradually fading. Sharon. William's voice was barely a whisper. Sharon, what? How did you? I looked up at him and saw my own shock reflected in his face, but also something else. Something that looked like awe and fear. You have the Luna gift, he breathed, his voice shaking. He dropped to his knees beside me, his hands hovering near mine but not quite touching, like I was something sacred and dangerous. Only the royal bloodline carries that power. It's been extinct since the coup. Since my father and the other lords. He trailed off, his face going pale. Sharon, who are you? I don't know, I whispered, and it was the truth. I'm nobody. I'm just Sharon, the girl your father bought for 30 silver. No. Williams shook his head, his eyes wide. No, you're not. You can't be. The Luna gift doesn't just appear in random omegas. It's passed down through bloodlines, through queens and princesses. If you have it, that means... He grabbed my shoulders, his grip gentle but urgent. Sharon, your mother. What happened to your mother? She disappeared when I was little. Uncle Garen said she just left one night and never came back. He said she abandoned me. Did you ever see her body? No. And your uncle sold you? William's voice was tight now, his mind clearly racing. He sold you to my father specifically, for 30 silver, which is... He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Which is nothing. An insult. Unless what? My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Unless he knew exactly who you were. Unless they both did. Williams's hands dropped from my shoulders, and he stood abruptly, pacing to the window. My father led the coup against the Luna Queen 20 years ago. He and the other Alpha Lords hunted down every member of the royal bloodline. They said they killed them all, that the Luna line was extinct. But... He turned back to me, and in his eyes I saw a terrible understanding dawning. But what if they missed someone? What if one of them escaped, went into hiding, had a child? His voice dropped to barely a whisper. What if your mother was that child? The room spun. I gripped the floor to steady myself, my breath coming in short gasps. No, I said, but even as I spoke, pieces were falling into place. The locket with its strange crest that Lord Sanchez had examined so carefully before letting me keep it. The way Uncle Garen had been so eager to be rid of me. So quick to sell me for an insulting price. The way Lord Sanchez had known exactly who to buy, had kept me here, invisible and forgotten, for years. Sharon. Williams knelt before me again, taking my trembling hands in his. If this is true, if you're Luna bloodline, you're in terrible danger. My father can't know. If he finds out what you can do, he'll kill me, I finished, my voice hollow. Yes. William's grip tightened on my hands. But Sharon, if it's true, it also means you're not nobody. It means you're royalty. It means you're the rightful heir to a throne that was stolen. I looked down at my hands, still tingling with residual power, and felt something shift inside me. Not just fear, though that was there, sharp and cold, but also something else. Rage. If my mother had been hunted, murdered, and I'd been kept here like a living secret, a hostage to ensure a bloodline died in obscurity. We have to be careful, Williams said urgently. We can't let anyone see this. You have to keep it hidden, buried as deep as you can. I know, I whispered. But even as I agreed, even as terror coursed through my veins, I couldn't stop staring at my hands, couldn't stop thinking about the power sleeping inside me, couldn't stop wondering who I really was, and what I might become. We'd been careless. That's what I would think later, lying in the darkness of the dungeon with chains biting into my wrists. We'd been so careful for so long, but comfort breeds complacency. And 3 years of secret meetings had made us forget the danger lurking in every shadow of Ironmore Keep. We'd been reading together in the Tower Library, our heads bent close over a book of poetry Williams had found. His hand had settled over mine on the page, and I'd felt that familiar warmth bloom in my chest. The warmth that had nothing to do with the Luna gift and everything to do with the way he looked at me, like I was something precious instead of property. "Sharon," he'd said softly, and there was something in his voice that made my breath catch. "I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about what we discovered, about who you might be, and I—" The door slammed open. We jerked apart, but it was too late. Too slow. The damage was already done. Darius stood in the doorway, 21 years old and built like a bull, with his father's ice-blue eyes but none of William's gentleness. Those eyes were fixed on us now with an expression I'd seen before, the look of a predator spotting wounded prey. "Well, well," he drawled, his voice dripping with malice. "Isn't this touching? My brother and the Omega whore playing at reading. How quaint." Darius. Williams stood, placing himself between me and his brother. "This isn't what you think. Isn't it?" Darius sauntered forward, and I could smell the alcohol on him, sharp and sour. "It looks to me like you've been sneaking off to fuck the help. Does father know about your little pet?" "We've been studying," Williams said evenly, though I could see his hands clenching into fists. "There's nothing improper happening here." "Studying," Darius laughed, cruel and cold. "Is that what you call it? You always were soft, little brother. Too weak to take what you want like a real alpha." His gaze slid to me, and I shrank back instinctively. "Come here, Omega." "Leave her alone," Williams warned. "Or what? You'll fight me?" Darius's smile was all teeth. "You've never won a fight in your life." He moved fast, faster than I expected from someone so drunk. Before Williams could react, before I could run, Darius had me by the throat, slamming me against the bookshelf hard enough to rattle my teeth. "Let's see what's got my brother so enchanted," he breathed, his face inches from mine, his breath making me gag. His free hand roamed over me in a mockery of intimacy, and I felt tears of helpless rage burning down my cheeks. "Darius, stop!" Williams grabbed his brother's shoulder, but Darius shrugged him off easily. "What's this?" Darius's fingers had found the chain around my neck, the one thing I'd kept hidden beneath my tattered dress for 4 years. The locket. Mama's locket. "No!" I gasped, but he was already ripping it free, the chain snapping like thread. "Give that back!" Williams lunged forward, but Darius held him off with one hand while examining the locket with the other. I watched his face change, watched his expression shift from cruel amusement to confusion to something far more dangerous. Recognition. "What is this?" he demanded, turning the locket over in his palm. His eyes widened. "This crest. This is—" On the back of the locket, barely visible in the lamplight, was an engraved symbol I'd never paid much attention to. A crescent moon wreathed in stars, delicate and beautiful. The Luna Royal seal. "It's nothing," I said desperately. "It was my mother's. It's just a trinket, please." "Father!" Darius roared, his voice echoing through the tower like thunder. "Father!" He grabbed me by the hair and dragged me toward the door. I screamed, clawing at his hands, but his grip was iron. Williams threw himself at his brother, but Darius backhanded him across the face hard enough to send him sprawling. "Darius, please," I begged as he hauled me down the stairs, my feet barely touching the ground. "Please, it doesn't mean anything. I don't know what it is." "Liar," he snarled. "You've been hiding under our roof this whole time, hiding what you are." He dragged me through the corridors, servants scattering before us like frightened birds. I heard Williams behind us, calling my name, but Darius moved with terrible purpose, pulling me down into the great hall where Lord Sanchez sat at the high table, reviewing documents by lamplight. He looked up as we entered, his expression mildly annoyed at the interruption. Darius, this had better be... Father. Darius threw me down onto the stone floor at his father's feet. I landed hard, pain shooting through my knees. The Omega, she's one of them. She's Luna bloodline. He held up the locket. The room went utterly silent. Lord Sanchez stood slowly, taking the locket from Darius's hand. He examined it carefully, turning it over in the light, his expression unreadable. Then his eyes, those ice-blue eyes that had haunted my nightmares for 4 years, settled on me. Stand up, he said quietly. I scrambled to my feet, trembling so hard I could barely stand. Summon the household, Lord Sanchez ordered, his gaze never leaving mine. Everyone, I want them all here, now. Within minutes, the great hall was packed, servants, guards, advisors, all pressed together in confused, frightened silence. I saw Mistress Vasca near the front, her hawk eyes sharp with malicious curiosity. I saw Williams pushing through the crowd, his face pale and desperate. Lord Sanchez circled me slowly, like a wolf circling wounded prey. The locket dangled from his fingers, catching the torchlight. Does anyone know this girl's name? He asked the assembled crowd. Silence, a few confused murmurs. No one? He smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Of course not. She's been here 4 years, and she's invisible. Nameless. Nothing. He stopped in front of me. Tell them your name, child. Sharon, I whispered. Sharon, he repeated. And do you know why you're here, Sharon? Do you know why your uncle sold you to me for 30 silver, an insult of a price, when he could have gotten 10 times that on the open market? I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. Because your uncle was paid far more than 30 silver, Lord Sanchez said softly. He was paid to deliver you to me specifically, to ensure that you disappeared quietly, forgotten, lost in the machinery of servitude. He held up the locket. This bears the personal seal of Queen Seraphina, the Luna Queen who ruled before the rightful Alpha Lords reclaimed their power. Your mother's name was Alara. She was Seraphina's daughter, the princess who escaped our justice 20 years ago. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I felt the floor tilting beneath my feet. No, I breathed. That's not. My mother was just... She was nobody. Your mother was the heir to a stolen throne, Lord Sanchez continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. And you, Sharon, are her daughter, the lost princess, the last of the Luna bloodline? He smiled that terrible smile again. I know exactly who you are, girl. I've known since the day I bought you. Your uncle came to me when you were born, terrified of what you represented. I paid him handsomely to keep quiet and to deliver you to me when you were old enough to work. I kept you alive as insurance, as a living reminder that the Luna line died not in glory, but in chains and obscurity. You knew. William's voice rang out from the crowd, raw with betrayal. You knew who she was, and you kept her here like a slave. I kept her alive, Lord Sanchez corrected coldly, which is more mercy than the rest of her bloodline received. But you've become too dangerous now, haven't you, Sharon? His eyes glittered. The Luna gift has awakened in you. I've heard the reports, wounds that heal too quickly, a bird restored to life. You're not just a symbol anymore, you're a threat. He gestured to the guards. Take her to the dungeon, chain her well. She dies at the blood moon, 3 days hence, and this time, the Luna bloodline ends for good. The guards grabbed my arms. I fought, screaming, as they dragged me toward the dungeon stairs. Sharon! Williams was pushing through the crowd, trying to reach me, but Darius held him back. No, please, please, I'm nobody. I don't want the throne. I'll never tell anyone, please. But my pleas dissolved into the darkness as they threw me into the cell and locked the chains around my wrists. Above me, I heard Lord Sanchez's voice, cold and final. The last Luna dies in 3 days. Prepare the execution scaffold. And the door slammed shut, leaving me alone in the dark, with the truth I'd never wanted to know. I was royalty, and it was going to kill me. The first day in the dungeon, I screamed until my voice gave out. The second day, I bargained with gods I wasn't sure existed, promising anything, everything, if they would just let me wake from this nightmare. The third day, the day I was supposed to die, I simply waited in the darkness, too exhausted for fear, too broken for hope. The chains around my wrists had rubbed my skin raw. The stone floor was damp and freezing, leaching the warmth from my body until I shook with cold that went bone deep. They'd given me water once, moldy bread twice. My stomach cramped with hunger, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. I was going to die at moonrise, and the last thing I'd see would be Lord Sanchez's cold smile as he erased the final evidence of his crimes. I'd almost drifted into uneasy sleep when I heard it. The soft scrape of footsteps on stone, the low murmur of voices, the clink of coins changing hands. Then the door opened. Lamplight spilled into my cell, and I squeezed my eyes shut against the sudden brightness, my heart hammering. Had they come early? Was Lord Sanchez so eager to kill me that he couldn't even wait for the blood moon? Sharon. That voice. Gods, that voice. I opened my eyes, and Williams was there, kneeling beside me in the filth and darkness, his face etched with such anguish that it broke something inside me that I hadn't known was still whole. "Williams," I sobbed, and then I was crying. Really crying. For the first time since they'd thrown me in here. Great, heaving sobs that shook my entire body, tears streaming down my face in hot rivers. "Williams, I'm so scared. I don't want to die. Please, I don't want to—" "Shh, shh, I've got you." He pulled me against his chest as much as the chains would allow, one hand cradling the back of my head, the other wrapped around my shaking shoulders. "I've got you, Sharon. I'm here." "How did you— the guards—" "My mother's jewelry," he said, his voice rough. "I bribed them. We don't have much time." He pulled back, cupping my face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away my tears. In the lamplight, I could see he'd been crying too. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face haggard. "Sharon, listen to me. I found the records. I broke into my father's study and I found everything." "What records?" "The coup. The massacre." His jaw clenched. "My father didn't just participate, Sharon. He led it. He murdered Queen Serafina himself, with his own hands. He hunted down every member of the Luna bloodline, your grandmother, your aunts, your cousins, children, Sharon. He killed children to make sure the bloodline ended." I felt bile rise in my throat. "My mother." "Your mother was Princess Alara. She was 19 when the coup happened. She escaped, barely, and went into hiding. She changed her name, tried to disappear, but they found her eventually. Your uncle," his voice dripped with contempt. "He was the one who betrayed her location. He was paid in gold to deliver her. But she was already pregnant with you." "She died having me," I whispered. "Uncle Garen always said—" "She was murdered, Sharon." William's hands tightened on my face. "They killed her, and then they paid your uncle to keep you hidden until you were old enough to work. My father bought you deliberately. He wanted you here, under his control, where he could watch you, where he could make sure you grew up believing you were nothing, that you had no power, no future. He kept you as a living hostage to ensure the Luna bloodline died in obscurity. The cruelty of it stole my breath. All those years of hunger and humiliation and pain, all of it orchestrated, deliberate, designed to break me so thoroughly that I'd never think to rise." "He's going to kill me at moonrise," I said, my voice hollow. "No." Williams released my face and pulled something from his pocket, a key. His hands shook as he fitted into the lock on my shackles. "No, he's not. Because you're leaving. Now. Tonight." "Williams, what are you—" The shackles fell away. I gasped, rubbing my raw wrists, hardly daring to believe it. Williams pulled me to my feet, steadying me when my legs nearly buckled. Then he knelt before me, actually knelt, as if I were already the queen he claimed I was born to be. "Sharon," he said, his voice breaking on my name. "I love you. I've loved you since the day I asked your name and you looked at me like I'd given you the world. I've loved you through every stolen moment, every secret lesson, every smile you gave me like it was something precious. I love you and I will not let them kill you." "Williams," my voice cracked. "If you help me escape, they'll know it was you. Your father will, I know." He stood, pulling items from beneath his cloak and pressing them into my hands. A small blade in a leather sheath, a worn traveling cloak with a deep hood, a rolled map, a small pouch that clinked with coins. "I know what this costs, and I'm choosing you anyway. I'm choosing treason. I'm choosing to betray my blood, my family, everything I've ever known." "Why?" I whispered, clutching the items to my chest. "Because you matter more." His hands came up to frame my face again, and his eyes, those beautiful storm-gray eyes, blazed with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Because loving you is the only good thing I've ever done in this cursed place. Because I would rather die a traitor than live as the son of your murderer." He leaned forward and kissed my forehead, soft and reverent, like a benediction. "There's a horse waiting in the stables, the bay mare, the fast one. Take her and ride north to Moonvale Forest. There are Luna loyalists there, remnants of the old guard who've been waiting for someone like you. They'll protect you. They'll help you." He pressed the map into my hands. "This shows the safe routes, the places to avoid. Go tonight. Don't stop. Don't look back." "Come with me," I begged, grabbing his hands. "Williams, please come with me. We can—" "I can't. Not yet." His smile was sad, achingly sad. "If I disappear the same night you escape, they'll send the full force of the guard after us. But if I stay, if I play the grieving brother betrayed by the treacherous Omega he foolishly trusted, I can buy you time. I can misdirect them, send them searching in the wrong places. They'll punish you. I know. Your father will. I know, Sharon." He pulled me into his arms one last time, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. "I know all of it. And I'm still choosing you. I will always choose you." I buried my face in his chest, memorizing the feel of him, the scent of him, storing it away for the long, lonely journey ahead. "I love you," I whispered against his heart. "I love you, Williams." "I know." His voice was thick with tears. "I've known for a while now. We've both been terrible at hiding it." He pulled back, wiping his eyes roughly, then pressed something else into my hand. A small strip of cloth. "Tie this around your wrist," he said, "so you'll remember. So you'll know that somewhere someone loves you enough to burn the world for you." I looked down at the cloth. Torn from his own shirt, I realized, still warm from his body, and felt fresh tears spill down my cheeks. "Go now," he said, his voice urgent. "The guard I bribed will only look away for another few minutes. Follow the servant's passage to the stables. Ride hard and don't stop until you reach the forest." "I'll come back," I promised fiercely. "I'll come back for you, I swear it." "I know you will." He smiled through his tears. "Become the queen you were born to be, Sharon. Reclaim what was stolen. And when you march on this place with an army at your back, I'll be waiting to open the gates for you." He kissed me then. Really kissed me. Soft and desperate and full of everything we'd never said aloud. It tasted like goodbye and forever, and a promise I intended to keep. Then he was pushing me toward the door, toward freedom, toward a future I'd never imagined I could have. "Go," he whispered. "Go, my queen, and may the moon light your path." I ran. I made it halfway across the courtyard before the alarms began to shriek. The sound split the night like a blade, bells tolling, horns blaring, voices shouting in confusion and rage. Torches blazed to life along the walls, turning darkness into harsh, flickering light that threw wild shadows across the rain-slicked stones. They'd discovered I was gone. "There!" someone shouted. "The Omega! She's escaping!" I ran harder, my lungs burning, William's cloak billowing behind me like wings. The stables were just ahead, so close, but guards were pouring into the courtyard from every direction, a tide of armor and steel closing in. I wasn't going to make it. Then I heard William's voice, ringing out clear and commanding above the chaos. "Darius! She went toward the east gate. Cut her off!" I risked a glance back and saw him standing in the center of the courtyard, pointing away from the stables, away from my actual escape route. Guards peeled off in the direction he'd indicated, and for a precious moment, the path ahead cleared. But Darius wasn't fooled. "Liar!" he snarled, and I saw him turn on Williams with murder in his eyes. "You helped her, didn't you? You pathetic, treasonous—" His fist connected with Williams' jaw with a sickening crack. Williams went down hard, and Darius was on him in an instant, raining down blows. "No!" The scream tore from my throat, but I couldn't stop, couldn't turn back. If I did, Williams's sacrifice would mean nothing. I crashed through the stable doors just as the sky opened up, rain pouring down in sheets that turned the world to blurred chaos. The bay mare was there, already saddled. Williams had thought of everything. I hauled myself onto her back with shaking hands, grabbed the reins and kicked hard. She bolted from the stable like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. Behind me, I heard Darius roaring orders, heard the clatter of guards mounting up, heard Williams scream my name one last time, a sound of anguish and desperation that carved itself into my heart like a brand. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. Looking back would break me, and I had to survive this. Had to make it mean something. The mare ran like the wind itself, her hooves thundering against the muddy road as we plunged into the storm. Rain lashed my face, cold and stinging. But I urged her faster, faster, leaning low over her neck as branches whipped past in the darkness. I didn't know where I was going, only away, away from the nightmare of Ironmore Keep, away from the executioner's scaffold, away from everything I'd ever known. Hours passed in a blur of rain and terror and exhaustion. The sounds of pursuit faded behind us. But I didn't slow down. Didn't dare stop until the mare began to stumble beneath me, her breathing labored and harsh. We'd entered the forest, Moonvale Forest, if Williams's map was accurate. The trees rose around us like cathedral pillars, their canopy so thick that even the rain barely penetrated. The mare staggered to a halt, her sides heaving, foam flecking her mouth. "Just a little further," I begged, but she was spent. We both were. I slid from her back and nearly collapsed myself. My legs were numb, my hands frozen around the reins. I led her deeper into the trees, searching desperately for shelter, and finally found it. A cave carved into a hillside, dry and dark and hidden. I pulled the mare inside and sank to the ground, my back against the cold stone. For a moment I just sat there, listening to the rain drum against the earth, to my own ragged breathing, to the mare's labored gasps. And then it hit me. All of it. Everything. The truth about who I was, what had been done to my family, the years of servitude and humiliation and pain that had been deliberate, orchestrated, designed to destroy me. My mother's murder, the Luna bloodline hunted to extinction, Williams's sacrifice, the way Darius had beaten him while I ran. A sound escaped my throat, half sob, half scream, and then I was breaking apart, everything I'd held together for 4 years shattering at once. I cried until I had nothing left, until my body was empty and hollow and aching. I cried for my mother, who I'd never really known. For the grandmother and family I'd never met. For the little girl who'd been sold for 30 silver and had learned to believe she was worthless. And I cried for Williams, who'd given up everything for me and might be dying right now in that rain-soaked courtyard, while I huddled in a cave like a coward. When the tears finally stopped, I felt scraped raw, exposed, like all my defenses had been stripped away, leaving only the truth beneath. I was Princess Sharon of the Luna bloodline, the lost heir, the last of my kind, and I was alone. A weak whimper drew my attention. The mare had collapsed onto her side, her breathing shallow and labored. I crawled over to her, my heart clenching. She'd run herself nearly to death to save me, and now she was paying the price. "I'm sorry," I whispered, stroking her neck. "I'm so sorry. You were so brave, so strong." She was dying. I could see it in her eyes, feel it in the way her body trembled, and there was nothing I could do except be with her at the end, the way Williams had been with me in the dungeon. Except, I looked down at my hands, remembered the hawk, its shattered wing made whole, remembered all the small healings over the years that I'd pushed away, denied, buried deep. The Luna gift. My birthright. "Please," I whispered, placing my hands on the mare's heaving sides. "Please, I don't know how to control this, but please, please work. She doesn't deserve to die because of me. None of this is her fault." I closed my eyes and reached for that warmth inside me, that power I'd spent years trying to hide. This time, I didn't just touch it. I embraced it. Silver light exploded from my palms, so bright I could see it even through my closed eyelids. It poured through the mare like liquid moonlight, wrapping around her exhausted muscles, her laboring lungs, her failing heart. I felt the moment her breathing steadied, felt her heartbeat grow strong and sure beneath my hands. When I opened my eyes, she was rising to her feet, whole and restored, looking at me with what I swear was gratitude in her dark eyes. I stared at my hands. They were still glowing, the silver light pulsing in time with my heartbeat. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid of it. I felt powerful. I stood on shaking legs and walked to the cave entrance. The rain had stopped. Through a break in the trees, I could see the moon, full and bright and silver, watching me like an ancient goddess bearing witness. I raised my glowing hands to it, and something shifted inside me. Something fundamental and irreversible. "I am Sharon, daughter of Alara, granddaughter of Seraphina," I said, and my voice didn't shake. It rang out clear and strong, echoing off the trees. "Lord Sanchez, you murdered my family. You hunted us like animals. You bought me like livestock and tried to break me, to erase me, to make me believe I was nothing." The light around my hands grew brighter, responding to my rage, my grief, my iron determination. "But I am not nothing. I am Luna-born. I carry the blood of queens, and I swear to you, I swear on my mother's grave, on the ashes of my family, on the moon that marks my power, I will take back what you stole. I will become the queen I was born to be. I will rally the scattered loyalists. I will learn to wield this gift like the weapon it is. And when I return," my voice dropped to something cold and deadly, "I will make you remember the name Seraphina. I will make you remember every child you murdered, every life you destroyed, and I will watch as everything you built crumbles to dust." The moon seemed to pulse brighter, as if sealing the vow. "I'm coming for you, Sanchez," I whispered, "and when I do, you'll wish you'd killed me when you had the chance." The terrified slave girl who'd cowered in the dungeon was gone. In her place stood something new, something fierce, something that would not break. A queen. 2 years. 2 years since I'd fled Ironmore Keep with nothing but William's borrowed hope and my own burning rage. 2 years since I'd made my vow to the moon and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The terrified slave dying so the queen could be born. But becoming a queen, I learned, required more than royal blood and righteous fury. It required steel. Commander Kira found me 3 days into my flight, when I was half-starved and wholly lost, trying to decipher Williams's map by moonlight. She materialized from the shadows like a ghost. A woman in her 50s with iron-gray hair, a face mapped with scars, and eyes that had seen the worst the world could offer and refused to break. "You have your grandmother's eyes," she'd said, lowering her blade. "Seraphina's eyes, golden as sunlight on wheat." I'd nearly wept with relief. "You knew her?" "I served her. I was captain of the Luna Guard when the coup came. I survived because I was away on patrol, and I've lived with that shame every day since." Her jaw had tightened. "But the moon goddess kept me alive for a reason. She kept me alive for you." Kira became everything. Teacher, protector, the mother I'd lost, the warrior I needed to become. She was merciless in her training, driving me past exhaustion, past pain, past the point where I thought I'd break. "You think Lord Sanchez will be kind?" she'd bark as I collapsed in the mud for the 10th time, my wooden practice sword slipping from numb fingers. "You think he'll let you rest? Get up, princess. Queens don't get the luxury of surrender." So I got up, again and again and again. I learned to fight with blade and bow and bare hands, learned to move silent as smoke through the forest, to track and hunt and survive on nothing but roots and rainwater. Learned strategy and tactics, how to read terrain and people with equal skill. But more than that, Kira taught me to wield the Luna gift not just as healing, but as weapon. "Your power is empathy," she explained during one of our lessons. "You feel what others feel, heal what hurts them. But empathy works both ways, princess. You can give comfort, or you can give pain. You can heal a wound or inflame it. You can calm a heart or stop it cold." The first time I used the gift to drop a man writhing to his knees with nothing but a touch, I'd been sick for hours afterward. "Good," Kira had said, holding my hair back as I vomited. "The day it stops sickening you is the day you've become what they are. But never forget. Sometimes mercy is letting the monster live. Sometimes it's making sure they can't hurt anyone ever again. A queen must know the difference." As my body grew stronger, as I learned to channel the Luna gift with precision instead of desperation, I began to venture out from our hidden camp. Disguised in peasant clothes, my silver-white hair dyed dark with walnut husks, I traveled to the broken villages that dotted the territories, places where Lord Sanchez's rule had ground hope into dust. And I healed them. A child dying of fever in one village, an old woman's infected wound in another, a man crushed beneath a fallen tree, his spine shattered, who walked again after my hands glowed silver over his broken body. I never stayed long, never gave my name. But word spread anyway, the way wildfire spreads through dry timber. The lost Luna has returned. She heals the sick and asks nothing in return. She bears the gift of the old queens. She's come to save us. The stories grew with each telling, becoming legend, becoming myth. Some claimed I could raise the dead. Others said I glowed like the moon itself. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was the hope kindling in eyes that had been dark too long. And with hope came action. Loyalists began finding their way to us. First a trickle, then a stream. Exiled nobles who'd lost everything in the coup. Common folk who remembered when Luna Queens ruled with compassion instead of fear. Wolves who still honored the old ways, who believed in balance between alpha power and Luna wisdom. We built an army in the shadows. Not through force or conscription, but through shared purpose, shared grief, shared determination that the world could be better than this. I learned to lead them. Learned to inspire and command, to make decisions that cost lives, and carry that weight without breaking. Learned that being queen meant being the one people looked to when everything fell apart, and standing steady even when I wanted to collapse. Commander Kira watched it all with fierce pride. "Your grandmother would have been proud," she told me one night as we overlooked our camp. Hundreds of tents now, thousands of loyal hearts. "You're becoming exactly what they feared you'd be." "What's that?" I asked. "Dangerous." The revolution built quietly, carefully. We were patient. Strategic. We gathered intelligence, mapped supply lines, identified which lords might be turned and which would fight to the bitter end. We waited for the perfect moment to strike. And then, on a cold autumn night 2 years after my escape, Williams found me. I was alone in the forest, practicing forms by moonlight, when I heard the snap of a branch behind me. I spun, blade raised, Luna gift flaring to life in my free hand, and stopped. He stood at the edge of the clearing, and he was different. Older, broader in the shoulders. A thick scar ran from his temple to his jaw, Darius's parting gift, I realized with cold fury. His clothes were travel-worn and muddy, his storm-gray eyes were haunted. But they were fixed on me with the same gentle intensity I remembered. Sharon, he breathed, like my name was a prayer. The sword fell from my nerveless fingers. Williams. He crossed the clearing in 3 strides and pulled me into his arms, and I went willingly, desperately, burying my face in his chest and breathing him in. He smelled like rain and road dust and home. You're alive, I sobbed against his heart. I thought, Darius, he was beating you. I thought. I'm here, he said, his voice rough. I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm never leaving you again. We sank to the ground together, unwilling to let go even for a moment. I pulled back just enough to touch the scar on his face, silver light automatically flowing from my fingertips to soothe the old pain. Don't, he said gently, catching my hand. I want to keep it. I want to remember what I chose, who I chose. What happened after I left? Darius beat me within an inch of my life. My father had me imprisoned, tried to force me to reveal where you'd gone. When I refused, he disowned me publicly, stripped me of my title and name. I was hunted for months before I managed to escape. His smile was bitter. Turns out being a traitor is remarkably good motivation for learning to disappear. I'm so sorry. Don't. He cupped my face in his hands. Don't apologize for surviving. Don't apologize for becoming this. His eyes roamed over me, taking in the warrior I'd become, the lean muscle, the scars, the confidence in how I held myself. You're magnificent, Sharon. You're everything I knew you'd be. I'm not a queen yet, I said. Just a girl with an army and a death wish. You're my queen, Williams said simply. You have been since the day I asked your name. Then he knelt before me in the moonlight, head bowed, offering his throat in the ancient gesture of submission and loyalty. I'm yours, he said, his voice steady and sure. Until death. Until the world ends. Until the stars go dark and the moon falls from the sky. I choose you, Sharon. I will always choose you. Something shifted in my chest. A warmth blooming there, spreading through my veins like liquid sunlight. I gasped, pressing a hand to my heart, and felt it. A pull, a connection, a bond snapping into place between us like a golden thread that could never be broken. Williams felt it too. His eyes flew to mine, wide with wonder, and I saw the exact moment the mate bond solidified, saw the silver crescent moon appear behind his left ear, glowing softly before settling into his skin like a brand. You're my mate, I breathed, touching the mark with trembling fingers. I've always been yours, Williams said, smiling through tears. The bond just made it official. He rose and kissed me then, not desperate like in the dungeon, but deep and slow and sure, like we had all the time in the world, like we were writing a new story with every breath. When we finally pulled apart, I rested my forehead against his. Stay with me, I whispered. Help me take back what they stole. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, he said. My queen, my mate, my heart. And standing there in the moonlight with Williams's arms around me and an army at my back and fire in my veins, I finally believed it. I could do this. I could win. I could become the queen my family died, believing I'd be. The revolution was coming, and we were ready. 4,000 souls marched with me to Steelhaven. They came from every corner of the broken kingdom. Wolves who remembered the old ways, humans who'd suffered under Alpha tyranny, exiled nobles who'd lost everything in the coup, common folk who simply wanted a world where children weren't sold for silver. They carried no weapons, only torches and hope, and an unshakable belief that change was possible. That I was possible. We walked in silence through the capital streets as dawn broke over the city. Shopkeepers emerged from their homes to stare. Guards on the walls watched with uncertain hands on their sword hilts, unsure whether to attack a peaceful procession of thousands. Word had spread before us like ripples on water. The lost Luna was coming home. Williams walked at my right hand, his presence a steady comfort. Commander Kira flanked my left, her scarred face set with grim satisfaction. Behind us, the river of loyalists flowed like an unstoppable tide. The palace courtyard was already packed when we arrived. Lord Sanchez's supporters had gathered, Alpha lords and their retinues, wealthy merchants who'd profited from the old regime, guards loyal to the current order. But there were others too, common people who'd come to see if the rumors were true, if hope had truly returned. Thousands of eyes turned toward us as we entered, and there at the top of the palace steps stood Lord Sanchez. He looked exactly as I remembered, cold and immaculate in black and silver, his ice-blue eyes sharp as broken glass, his expression carved from stone. Age had touched him lightly. He was still the warlord who'd murdered my family, still the monster who'd bought me like livestock. But I was not the terrified child he'd purchased anymore. I stepped forward alone, my voice ringing clear across the courtyard. 20 years ago, this man led a coup against the Luna throne. He murdered Queen Seraphina, my grandmother, with his own hands. He hunted down the royal bloodline like animals. He slaughtered children to ensure no heir survived. The crowd stirred, murmurs rising like a gathering storm. My mother was Princess Ilara, I continued, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. She escaped the massacre and went into hiding. She died bringing me into this world, murdered on Lord Sanchez's orders while I was still in her womb. And then this man, I pointed at him with terrible precision, paid my uncle to deliver me. He bought me at 9 years old for 30 silver, not as a servant, as insurance, as a living hostage to ensure the Luna bloodline died not in glory, but in obscurity and chains. Lord Sanchez's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those cold eyes. Recognition. And beneath it, something that might have been calculation. For 4 years I scrubbed his floors, I emptied his chamber pots, I learned to disappear, to believe I was nothing. Nobody, worthless. My hands clenched into fists. That's what he wanted, for me to die without ever knowing who I was, what I carried. I raised my hands, and silver light exploded from my palms, brighter than I'd ever made it, brilliant as the moon itself. The crowd gasped, some falling to their knees. I am Sharon, daughter of Ilara, granddaughter of Seraphina. I carry the Luna gift, the sacred power of healing and balance that has been passed down through queens for 1,000 years. A crippled child sat in the front row, her legs twisted and useless. I knelt before her, placing my glowing hands on her withered limbs. The light poured through her like liquid starlight, and before the crowd's astonished eyes, her legs straightened, strengthened, healed. She stood for the first time in her life, tears streaming down her face. An old woman cried out that she couldn't see. I touched her clouded eyes, and when she opened them again, they were clear as a girl's. The Luna gift blazed for all to witness, undeniable proof of my bloodline. This is what he tried to destroy, I said, standing to face Lord Sanchez again. This is what he feared, not just power but compassion, not just strength but healing. The Luna Queens ruled with balance, tempering alpha aggression with omega wisdom, and he couldn't bear it. I began walking toward him, my steps echoing on the stone. The crowd parted before me like water. I have returned to reclaim what you stole, to restore balance to a kingdom drowning in cruelty, 2. And then it hit me. An agonizing pull slammed through my chest like a blade forged from starlight and destiny, and the moon goddess's cruelest joke. My wolf, usually so quiet, suddenly howled with recognition, joy and horror and confusion all at once. The mate bond snapped into place. "No!" I gasped, staggering backward. My hand flew to my chest, pressing against the sudden, overwhelming rightness of it, the sacred pull that wrapped around my heart like chains made of moonlight. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. But Lord Sanchez felt it too. I saw the exact moment it struck him, his ice-blue eyes widening in shock, then fury, then something darker. Something almost like recognition. His hand came up to his own chest, mirroring my gesture. "What?" he started, but the word died in his throat. On my right wrist, fire bloomed. I looked down and watched in horror as a second mate mark blazed to life, glowing molten silver alongside the crescent moon Williams had given me. The twin mate mark, ancient, sacred, appearing only once in a generation, binding a Luna to 2 destined protectors instead of 1. "No," Williams breathed beside me, his face draining of color. "Sharon, no, that's not. That can't be." But the mark was there, undeniable, burning like a brand. And I could feel it. Feel the bond wrapping around me and Lord Sanchez like invisible threads we could never break, pulling us toward each other even as everything in me screamed to run. The crowd erupted in confused murmurs. The twin mate mark was legend, myth, something from old stories. Seeing it manifest before their eyes sent shock rippling through thousands of witnesses. Lord Sanchez took a step toward me, his expression a war between rage and something he clearly couldn't name. When he spoke, his voice was raw, shaking with fury and confusion, and something that sounded almost like betrayal. "You," he snarled. "The moon goddess bound me to you? To the daughter of the woman I—" He cut himself off, jaw clenching so hard I could see the muscle jump. My soul was tearing in 2 directions. My wolf recognized both men with absolute certainty. Williams, my love, my choice, my rescuer, the mate I'd chosen with my whole heart. And Sanchez, my enemy, my nightmare, the monster who'd murdered my family and destroyed everything I'd ever loved. The bond didn't care about history, didn't care about justice or grief or rage. It simply was ancient and absolute, demanding I acknowledge what fate had decided. "This is wrong," I whispered, even as my body swayed toward Sanchez against my will. "This is cruel. This is—" Williams moved, stepping between us, his hand on his blade. "Stay away from her." Sanchez's guards immediately moved to defend their lord, weapons drawn. The crowd teetered on the edge of violence, thousands of people holding their breath. And I stood frozen between them, between love and hate, choice and destiny, the life I wanted and the fate the moon goddess had carved into my very bones. "Enough," I said, and power flooded my voice. Silver light exploded outward from my body in a wave. Both men froze mid-motion, bound by the Luna command, the sacred authority of a queen that compelled obedience from all wolves. The guards stopped. The crowd stilled. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I looked at Lord Sanchez, and every ounce of rage and grief and betrayal I'd carried for years burned in that gaze. "The bond doesn't make you worthy," I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the courtyard, amplified by ancient magic. "It doesn't erase what you've done. It doesn't grant you forgiveness or redemption or mercy. It makes you mine to judge." I stepped closer, holding his gaze, letting him feel the full weight of my fury through the bond we now shared. "I will never forget that you murdered my family, that you bought me like cattle, that you tried to break me so thoroughly I'd never know my own name, and I will never—" My voice dropped to something cold and deadly. "Let you forget what you took from me." The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some cried out in shock. Some simply stared in confusion at the impossible scene before them. Lord Sanchez's own guards wavered, looking between their lord and the young queen blazing with silver light. One by one, they began to kneel. Then more. then all of them, until Lord Sanchez stood alone on the steps, surrounded by people bowing to me instead. "Seize him," Commander Kira commanded, and guards, his own guards, moved to obey, binding Lord Sanchez's hands even as he stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. The revolution had succeeded. The lost Luna had reclaimed her throne. But as Williams reached for my hand, and I felt the pull of the second bond tugging me toward my greatest enemy, I realized the cruelest truth of all. Victory had never tasted so much like defeat. My heart was shattered, torn between two mates, two destinies, and the moon goddess's most terrible joke. I'd won the kingdom. But at what cost? Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.